Marcus Ellison, a black FBI deputy director, cruised through Atlanta's suburbs at dusk, his mind on a case when red and blue lights flashed. Officer Daniel Hargrove, a white cop with a smug grin, claimed a broken tail light. Marcus stayed calm, but Hargrove's eyes narrowed, his hand twitching toward his gun. "You're resisting," he snarled, drawing his weapon. Marcus froze as the barrel pressed against his temple, radio chatter summoning backup. This routine stop was no accident. It was a trap that would unravel his life. What conspiracy awaited Marcus? Before we dive deeper, let us know where you're watching from. And if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is one you won't want to miss. The Atlanta dusk thickened as Marcus Ellison sat rigid in his car, the cold steel of Officer Daniel Hargrove's gun still echoing in his mind, though the weapon now rested in its holster. His FBI badge lay on the dashboard, glinting under the cruiser's flashing lights, but Hargrove's sneer told Marcus it meant nothing. The air crackled with static as more police cars screeched to a halt, their headlights blinding him. 4 officers, all white, spilled out, their faces hard, their hands on their holsters. "You're in deep now," Hargrove muttered, his voice low and mocking, as he yanked Marcus's door open. Marcus kept his hands raised, his voice steady despite the pulse hammering in his throat. "I'm FBI Deputy Director Marcus Ellison," he said, gesturing to his badge. "This is a mistake." Hargrove laughed, a sharp, ugly sound, and snatched the badge, tossing it to the ground like trash. "Mistake," he spat. "You're resisting arrest, big shot." The other officers closed in, their boots crunching on the asphalt, forming a tight circle around Marcus. He scanned their faces, searching for a flicker of reason, but found only cold certainty. One officer, a burly man with a buzz cut, barked, "Step out now!" Marcus complied, moving slowly, his suit jacket catching on the doorframe. As he stood, the moment his feet hit the ground, they grabbed him, twisting his arms behind his back with unnecessary force. The cuffs bit into his wrists, metal grinding against skin, and he stifled a wince. "I'm not resisting," Marcus said, his tone calm but firm, hoping to de-escalate. "You got the wrong guy." Hargrove smirked, leaning close enough for Marcus to smell, his stale coffee breath. "Wrong guy. We'll see about that." The burly officer shoved Marcus toward a cruiser, his hand heavy on Marcus's shoulder, while another rummaged through Marcus's car. Marcus caught a glimpse of gloved hands pulling out a small plastic bag, its contents white and powdery, and his stomach dropped. "That's not mine," he said, his voice rising despite his effort to stay composed. "You're planting that." The officers ignored him, their movements rehearsed as if they'd done this before. Hargrove scribbled something on a notepad, muttering about probable cause while the bag disappeared into an evidence kit. Marcus's mind raced, piecing together the setup. This wasn't a random stop, it was a calculated strike, and he was the target. The cruiser's door slammed shut behind him, the sound final like a coffin lid. Through the window, he saw Hargrove pick up his badge from the dirt, twirling it like a trophy before slipping it into his pocket. The drive to the precinct was a blur of neon signs and muffled radio chatter, the officers' voices low and conspiratorial. Marcus sat in the back, cuffed, his mind working overtime. He needed to contact his team, get ahead of this, but his phone was gone, confiscated along with his wallet. The precinct loomed ahead, a squat concrete building with flickering lights, its windows dark except for one glowing office on the second floor. They pulled him from the car, dragging him through a side door into a fluorescent-lit hallway that reeked of bleach and despair. The officer's boots echoed on the linoleum as they pushed him toward a holding cell, their grip bruising his arms. Inside, the cell was a claustrophobic box, its walls stained with grime, the air thick with the stench of sweat and fear. The door clanged shut, and Marcus stood alone, his suit now wrinkled, his tie askew. He paced the small space, his mind racing. He was a high-ranking FBI official, a man who'd dismantled cartels and exposed corruption, yet here he was, caged like a common criminal. The realization hit hard. This wasn't just about Hargrove, it was bigger, systemic, a machine designed to crush him. Voices drifted through the cell's barred window, low and urgent, and Marcus pressed himself against the wall to listen. "You? Sure about this, Dan?" one officer whispered. "He's FBI, not some street punk." Hargrove's voice cut through, sharp and confident. Don't worry, Voss has it handled. The captain's already got the media lined up. This guy's done. Marcus's blood ran cold. Captain Leonard Voss, the name landed like a punch. He'd heard rumors about Voss, a precinct boss with a reputation for bending the law to fit his prejudices. If Voss was behind this, Marcus wasn't just fighting a rogue cop. He was up against a network, one with deep roots and long reach. The cell door rattled, and Hargrove appeared, his smirk wider now, almost gleeful. You're famous already, Ellison, he said, holding up a tablet. The screen showed a breaking news alert. FBI official arrested in drug bust. Marcus's face was plastered across it, his official headshot now a mugshot in the public's eyes. The story claimed he'd been caught with cocaine, resisted arrest, and assaulted an officer. Every word was a lie, but the damage was done. Marcus clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. You won't get away with this, he said, his voice low, controlled. Hargrove laughed, stepping closer to the bars. Get away? We're just getting started. Voss wants you buried, and he always gets what he wants. The door slammed again, leaving Marcus in silence, the tablet's glow fading from his vision, but not his mind. He sank onto the cell's lone bench, its metal frame creaking under his weight. His first instinct was to call his team. Sarah, his deputy, would know what to do. He banged on the bars, demanding his phone call, but the guard outside, a lanky man with a bored expression, just shrugged. Systems down, he said, not even looking up from his magazine. Marcus pressed again, citing his rights, but the guard walked away, whistling. The isolation was suffocating, worse than the cuffs or the cell. He was cut off, not just from his team, but from the world he'd built. The career he'd clawed his way to despite every obstacle thrown at him as a black man in law enforcement. The precinct's walls seemed to close in, each scuff mark and crack a reminder of how many others had been trapped here, their stories buried. Marcus's thoughts turned to his family, Lena, his wife, a fierce former journalist who'd always had his back, and Caleb, their 16-year-old son, who looked up to him with wide-eyed admiration. They'd see the news, they'd believe in him, but what could they do against a machine like this? He needed to warn them, protect them, but every avenue was blocked. The guard's whistle faded, replaced by footsteps, heavier this time, deliberate. A new figure appeared at the cell door, tall, broad-shouldered, with a face carved from stone. Captain Leonard Voss. His grey hair was cropped military style, his eyes pale and unblinking, like a predator sizing up prey. So you're the big shot Fed, Voss said, his voice smooth but laced with venom. Thought you were untouchable, huh? Marcus stood meeting Voss's gaze, refusing to flinch. This is a setup and you know it, he said. Let me make my call, and this ends now. Voss chuckled, a low, guttural sound that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. Ends? Oh, it's just beginning. He leaned closer, his breath hot through the bars. You're a threat, Ellison. A black man with power. That's not how it works around here. We're going to tear you down, piece by piece. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he held his ground. You're making a mistake, he said. Voss's smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. The only mistake was you thinking you belonged at the top. He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back. Enjoy your cell, it's where you'll rot. The door's echo lingered as Marcus stood frozen, Voss's words sinking in. This wasn't just about a traffic stop or planted drugs. It was about dismantling everything he'd built. His career, his reputation, his life. He paced again, faster now, his mind scrambling for a way out. He tried the bars, testing their strength, but they didn't budge. He shouted for the guard, demanding his call again, but no one came. The precinct's hum filled the silence, phones ringing, voices murmuring, all part of the machine working against him. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, time blurred in the cells, dim light. Marcus's thoughts churned, replaying the stop, Hargrove's gun, the planted bag. He'd faced danger before, cartels, dirty cops, but this was different, personal, a betrayal of the system he'd sworn to uphold. He sank back onto the bench, his hands trembling not from fear but from rage, a deep burning anger at the injustice closing in. He thought of Lena's face, Caleb's laugh, and steeled himself. He wasn't done, not yet. He'd find a way to fight, to expose Voss, to survive. But as the cell's shadows lengthened, a new sound broke his thoughts, a faint buzz from the hallway. He pressed against the bars, straining to hear. It was Hargrove's voice again, smug as ever, talking to another officer. "Make sure the media gets the full story," he said. "Voss wants this on every screen by morning. And the phone lines, keep 'em jammed. Nobody talks to Ellison's people." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Marcus's call wasn't delayed by chance. It was blocked deliberately to keep him isolated. His team, his lifeline, was out of reach, and the world was swallowing Voss's lies. He gripped the bars, his knuckles whitening as the truth settled in. This was a war, and he was fighting. It alone. The precinct's lights flickered, casting long shadows across the cell, and Marcus knew the worst was yet to come. The fluorescent buzz of the Atlanta precinct's holding cell gnawed at Marcus Ellison's nerves as he sat on the cold bench, his wrists still raw from the cuffs. The news alert from Hargrove's tablet burned in his mind, his face plastered across screens, labeled a drug-dealing traitor. His heart pounded, not just for himself but for Lena and Caleb, who'd see the lies splashed everywhere. Outside, the world was swallowing the precinct's poison whole. Within hours, the story exploded. FBI Deputy Director caught in scandal, trending on every platform, shared by thousands who didn't know him, didn't question the narrative. Marcus paced the cell's grimy floor, each step a fight to keep despair at bay. He'd faced threats before, but this was a different beast, a public crucifixion orchestrated by Captain Leonard Voss, a man whose pale eyes and venomous words promised ruin. The cell's barred window offered no view, only the muffled roar of a growing crowd outside. Marcus pressed his ear to the wall, catching fragments of shouts, some angry, some gleeful, and worst of all, racial slurs slicing through the chaos. The precinct had leaked his arrest to ignite this, he realized, turning neighbors into enemies. His stomach twisted as he thought of Lena, a former journalist who'd always sniffed out lies, now facing this storm at home. Caleb, just 16, would be scrolling through hate-filled comments, his faith in his father tested. Marcus banged on the bars, demanding his phone call again, but the lanky guard from before just smirked, flipping through his magazine. "Rights don't mean much in here," he muttered, walking off. Marcus's fists clenched, his nails digging into his palms. He was a man who'd climbed to the top of the FBI, a black man who'd shattered ceilings, yet here he was, caged, voiceless, while Voss's machine churned. The crowd's noise swelled, and Marcus caught a new sound. News vans, their engines idling, reporters shouting for sound bites. Voss had planned this, a media circus to bury him. Marcus's mind raced. He needed to get word to his team, to Sarah, his deputy who'd rally the FBI's resources. He shouted for the guard again, citing federal protocol, but the hallway stayed empty, the precinct's hum mocking his isolation. Then, a new voice broke through, sharp and panicked, from a radio down the hall. Trouble at the suspect's house, it crackled. Neighbors throwing bottles, cops dispatched. Marcus's heart stopped. Lena and Caleb weren't just seeing the news, they were targets now, their home a battleground. He pictured Lena's fierce eyes, Caleb's nervous grin, and felt a surge of helpless rage. He had to act, had to find a way out. A flicker of hope came when a new guard appeared, younger with a hesitant glance. Marcus seized the chance, lowering his voice, urgent but calm. "I'm FBI," he said. "This is a setup. Get a message to my wife, Lena Ellison, please." The guard's eyes darted, then softened, as if wrestling with his conscience. "I'll try," he whispered, slipping away. Marcus exhaled, a spark of relief flaring. Maybe, just maybe, he'd breached the wall. He sank back onto the bench, replaying the guard's face, praying he wasn't another of Voss's pawns. Hours crawled by, the cell's shadows shifting as night deepened. Marcus's hope clung to that guard, to Lena's strength, but the radio's chatter grew darker. Protesters at the precinct, some holding signs calling him a disgrace, others screaming slurs egged on by Voss's media allies. Marcus's name was a hashtag now, a punchline for late-night hosts, a warning for anyone who dared rise too high. He thought of his 20-year career, the cases he'd cracked, the lives he'd saved, all reduced to a single vicious lie. The guard returned, his face pale, avoiding Marcus's eyes. "Couldn't get through," he mumbled. "They're watching." Marcus's hope shattered, replaced by a sinking dread. Voss's reach was tighter than he'd feared, strangling every escape. The guard hesitated, then slipped a crumpled note through the bars. "It's all I could do," he said, vanishing. Marcus unfolded it, his hands trembling. It was a printout of a news article. FBI official's family harassed as scandal grows. The photo showed Lena shielding Caleb from a crowd, their front lawn littered with broken glass. Marcus's throat tightened, his rage now a living thing clawing at his chest. He needed a lawyer, someone to fight this, but who could stand against Voss's network? The precinct door clanged, and a woman appeared, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. "I'm Rachel Holt, your attorney," she said, her voice clipped but steady. Marcus stood grasping at this lifeline. "They're framing me," he said. "Planted drugs, blocked my calls, everything." Rachel nodded, her pen scribbling notes. "I believe you, but Voss has the DA in his pocket. Evelyn Carver's building a case to keep you locked up." Marcus's jaw tightened. Carver, another name to add to the conspiracy. Rachel leaned closer, her voice low. "I'll fight for bail, but the media's already convicted you. And your team, Sarah's trying, but someone's stonewalling her at headquarters." Marcus's mind reeled. An insider at the FBI. The betrayal cut deeper than the cuffs. Rachel promised to dig, but her warning lingered. Voss's influence was a hydra, every move they made spawning new threats. She left, and Marcus sat, the note about his family crumpled in his fist. He pictured Lena's courage, Caleb's fear, and vowed to protect them no matter the cost. But the radio crackled again, a reporter's voice cutting through. "New evidence in the Ellison case. Sources say he's linked to a drug ring." Marcus's blood ran cold, the lie growing, metastasizing, and he knew Voss was tightening the noose. The crowd outside roared louder, their chants a mix of justice and hate, and Marcus realized he wasn't just fighting for his freedom, but for his family's survival. The cell's walls seemed to pulse, each scuff mark a testament to the system's cruelty, and Marcus braced himself, knowing the worst was yet to come. If you're raging at the injustice Marcus faces, comment 1 to stand with him, smash that like button, and subscribe for the next chapter of this relentless fight. How will Marcus counter Voss's media onslaught when his family's safety hangs by a thread? The stale air of the Atlanta precinct's holding cell clung to Marcus Ellison's skin as he stood, his suit now creased and sweat-stained, awaiting transport to his bail hearing. The note about Lena and Caleb's harassment was tucked in his pocket, a jagged reminder of the stakes. The guard's betrayal, failing to deliver his message, gnawed at him, but Rachel Holt's promise of a fight gave him a sliver of hope. He'd face the court, expose Voss's lies, and walk free. The transport van rattled through the city, its windows barred, the outside world a blur of grey buildings and honking traffic. Marcus sat cuffed, flanked by 2 officers who avoided his gaze, their silence heavy with complicity. The courthouse loomed, a stone monolith under a bruised sky, its steps crawling with reporters. Cameras flashed as Marcus was led inside, their lenses hungry for his downfall. The courtroom was packed, spectators whispering, some glaring with prejudged contempt. Rachel stood at the defense table, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Marcus took his seat, his cuffs clinking, and leaned toward her. "They've got nothing real," he whispered. Rachel's jaw tightened. "They don't need real," she said. "Carver's playing dirty." District Attorney Evelyn Carver strode in, her heels clicking, her face a mask of calculated confidence. Marcus had heard of her, a prosecutor with a knack for winning unwinnable cases, rumored to owe her rise to powerful allies like Voss. The judge, a stern man with thinning hair, banged his gavel, and the hearing began. Carver's voice was smooth, almost theatrical as she laid out her case. "Marcus Ellison," she said, "a corrupt FBI official caught with cocaine, resisting arrest, a danger to society." She presented the planted drugs now sealed in an evidence bag and played doctored body cam footage. The video showed Marcus lunging at Hargrove, a blatant lie, the footage spliced to erase Hargrove's gunpoint threat. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom, and Marcus felt the weight of every stare. Marcus gripped the table, his knuckles whitening. "That's fabricated," he said, his voice cutting through the room. Rachel shot him a warning glance, but he couldn't stay silent. "I'm innocent," he said. "This is a setup." The judge's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, his silence deafening. Rachel argued fiercely, presenting Marcus's impeccable record, his decades of service, his lack of motive. She called the footage into question, demanded an independent review, but Carver countered with a stack of affidavits from Hargrove and other officers, all swearing Marcus had resisted, all lies. The crowd's whispers grew louder, venomous, as if they'd already convicted him. Marcus scanned the room, searching for a friendly face, but found only hostility, the media's poison at work. The judge deliberated briefly, too briefly, and Marcus's heart sank. "Bail denied," he said, his gavel crashing like a guillotine. "Marcus is to be held at Fulton County Jail pending trial." Gasps filled the room, and Rachel's face paled, her pen frozen mid-note. Marcus was yanked to his feet, his cuffs biting deeper as deputies dragged him toward the exit. Rachel leaned close, her voice urgent. "We'll appeal," she said. "Stay strong." But her words felt hollow as the courtroom faded behind him. The transport to Fulton County Jail was a grim procession, the van's engine rumbling like a death knell. Marcus's mind raced, replaying Carver's smug grin, the judge's indifference. Voss's reach was deeper than he'd feared, a web strangling justice itself. The jail loomed, a sprawling fortress of concrete and razor wire, its gates swallowing him whole. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and menace, the halls echoing with shouts and clanging metal. Marcus was processed like cattle, stripped of his suit, given an orange jumpsuit that hung loose on his frame. His cell was a dank closet, shared with a wiry inmate who eyed him like prey. "Word travels fast," the inmate said, grinning. "You're the cop snitch." Marcus tensed, his FBI training kicking in. He wasn't just a prisoner, he was a target. That night, the attack came. 3 inmates cornered him in the mess hall, their fists wrapped in socks filled with batteries. A jailhouse weapon meant to break bones without leaving marks. They called him slurs, spitting Voss's lies, said he'd snitched on their crew. Marcus fought back, his body remembering years of hand-to-hand training. He dodged a swing, landed a jab, and dropped one attacker with a knee to the gut. The others hesitated, surprised by his skill, and guards finally intervened, batons swinging. Marcus stood, bruised but unbroken, earning a grudging nod from an older inmate watching from the sidelines. "You got heart," the man said later, introducing himself as Tyson. "Heard what they're saying. Ain't right." Marcus seized the chance, probing for allies. Tyson hinted at rumors. Voss had paid inmates to take Marcus out. A hit dressed as a random brawl. Marcus's blood ran cold. The assassination plot was no bluff. Voss wanted him dead, not just disgraced. He needed to act, to get word to Lena, to fight from the inside. Tyson mentioned a smuggled phone, a lifeline if Marcus could earn the trust to use it. That night, Marcus lay on his cot, the jail's hum a constant drone, and crafted a plan. He'd play the game, build alliances, get that phone. He scratched a message on his cell wall, cryptic for Lena, in case he didn't make it. The next day, he approached Tyson, offering to share legal knowledge in exchange for access. Tyson agreed, and by evening Marcus held the phone, its cracked screen glowing like hope itself. He texted Lena, urging her to dig into Voss, to stay safe. The message sent, and Marcus exhaled, believing he'd outmaneuvered Voss. But hope crumbled, hours later when Tyson pulled him aside, his face grim. "Bad news," he said. "They froze your family's accounts, bank, credit, all of it. Carver's orders." Marcus staggered, the blow worse than any fist. Lena and Caleb were defenseless, their home, their safety, gutted by Voss's machine. The cell. Walls closed in, the slurs from the mess hall echoing in his mind. And Marcus realized this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about breaking everyone he loved. He gripped the cot's edge, his rage a wildfire, vowing to tear Voss's empire down no matter the cost. But as the jail's lights dimmed, a guard's whisper reached him. "Carver's got new evidence. Says you're planning an escape. You're done, Ellison." Marcus's heart pounded, the noose tightening, and he knew the fight was far from over. The concrete walls of Fulton County Jail seemed to pulse with menace as Marcus Ellison lay on his cot, the smuggled phone's brief connection to Lena now a fading spark. The guard's taunt about new evidence and frozen accounts echoed in his mind, each word a fresh wound. Lena and Caleb were out there, defenseless, their lives upended by Voss's cruel machine. Marcus clutched the cot's edge, his knuckles aching, vowing to fight, but the jail's oppressive hum mocked his resolve. Across Atlanta, Lena Ellison stood in their cluttered living room, the curtains drawn tight against prying eyes. The news still blared Marcus's face, branding him a criminal, while their lawn bore scars from hurled bottles and spray-painted slurs. Caleb sat hunched on the couch, his phone dark, his usual teenage bravado replaced by a quiet fear that broke Lena's heart. She'd been a journalist once, fearless, exposing corruption in city halls and boardrooms, and now that fire reignited. Marcus was no criminal, he was a target, and she'd prove it. She opened her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys, digging into Captain Leonard Voss's past. Public records showed his rapid rise in the precinct, but whispers on old forums hinted at darker ties, a white supremacist group called the Iron Covenant, rumored to pull strings in Atlanta's shadows. Lena's pulse quickened. This was the thread to unravel Voss's empire. She cross-referenced names, dates, campaign donations, her old instincts sharp as ever. A photo surfaced, grainy but damning, Voss shaking hands with a known Covenant leader. At a fundraiser. Lena saved it, her first piece of ammunition, but the victory was fleeting. A crash shattered the silence, glass exploding inward as a brick smashed through the window, landing at Caleb's feet. He yelped, scrambling back while Lena dove to shield him. Scrawled on the brick in red marker was a single word: traitor. Lena's hands shook as she called the police, but the dispatcher's voice was cold, almost amused. "We're stretched." "Thin, ma'am," they said. "Stay safe." The line went dead, and Lena knew Voss's influence had poisoned even the 911 line. She boarded up the window, her mind racing. They couldn't stay here, but with their accounts frozen, options were scarce. Caleb's school wasn't safe either. Lena had found his locker defaced with slurs, the principal shrugging it off as kids being kids. She packed a bag, urging Caleb to grab essentials, but his eyes were glued to his phone, scrolling through hateful comments about his dad. "Mum," he said, his voice cracking, "how do we fix this?" Lena knelt, gripping his shoulders. "We fight," she said. "Like your dad's fighting, we don't quit." Caleb nodded, but the fear lingered. They moved to a motel under a fake name, the neon sign flickering outside their dingy room. Lena kept digging, her laptop now a lifeline. She found more, a leaked email from Voss to DA Evelyn Carver, vague but incriminating, hinting at a plan to neutralize a threat. Marcus, Lena realized, was that threat. She drafted an expose, weaving the photo, email, and Covenant ties into a narrative that could topple Voss. Her old editor, Jamal Carter, agreed to publish it anonymously, a spark. To ignite public outrage, Lena felt a surge of hope. If this broke, Marcus could walk free. But as she typed, Caleb's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We know where you are." Lena's blood ran cold, her journalist's instincts screaming trap. She checked. The motel's lot, spotting a black SUV idling, its driver obscured. They had to move now. She grabbed Caleb, slipping out the back, but the SUV's engine roared, headlights pinning them. Lena sprinted, Caleb's hand in hers, through alleys, slick with rain, until they reached a friend's apartment, breathless but alive. Inside, Lena checked her laptop, only to find her expose gone, the file erased, her cloud hacked. A message blinked on the screen, courtesy of the Covenant. Lena staggered, the loss worse than the brick or the chase. Her weapon was stolen, her fight gutted. Back in the jail, Marcus clung to the smuggled phone's success, unaware of Lena's peril. He'd earned Tyson's trust, and the older inmates shared more. Voss's network ran deep, cops, judges, even prison guards on his payroll. Marcus's attack in the mess hall wasn't random, It was a hit, and more were coming. That night, Marcus strategized. 2 inmates rushed him in the shower block, shanks glinting. Marcus reacted fast, his FBI training a blur of motion, disarming one with a wrist lock, slamming the other against the tiles. The guards were slow to arrive, their smirks betraying Voss's orders. Tyson pulled Marcus aside later, his voice low. "You're marked, man. Voss ain't stopping." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight, but a spark flared. He'd outsmarted the hit, gained allies. He shared his plan with Tyson. Use the phone again, contact Lena, coordinate a counter-strike. Tyson agreed, but warned, "Guards are sniffing around. Phones." Hot. Marcus risked it, texting Lena, unaware her phone was now in enemy hands. The next morning, a guard yanked Marcus from his cell, tossing him into a van. "You're wanted downtown," the guard said, but the van's route was wrong, heading toward the city's edge. Marcus's gut twisted. This wasn't a transfer. It was an ambush. He braced himself, but the van stopped at a precinct, not a hit. Inside, he learned the truth. Lena had been arrested, trespassing, they claimed, caught digging into Voss's files. Caleb was alone, their motel room raided, their lives in freefall. Marcus's knees buckled. The phone's message had led Voss to his family, his hope now a noose. He demanded to see Lena, but the guard laughed, shoving him back into a cell. The walls closed in, the jail stench suffocating, and Marcus realized Voss's machine wasn't just after him. It was devouring everyone he loved. If you're furious at the system crushing Lena's fight, comment 1 to stand against this injustice. Hit like and subscribe for the next twist in this relentless saga. Can Caleb, just 16, outwit Voss's hunters and save his parents from this tightening trap? The dim light of the Fulton County jail cell flickered as Marcus Ellison sat on his cot. The news of Lena's arrest and Caleb's solitude a fresh wound in his chest. The smuggled phone, once a lifeline, had betrayed him, leading Voss's hounds to his family. His hands clenched, nails biting into his palms as he replayed every move, searching for a way to protect his son. Across Atlanta, Caleb Ellison crouched in the cramped bedroom of his friend Jamal's apartment, the air thick, with the scent of old pizza and fear. At 16, he was no stranger to the city's rough edges, but this was different. His parents were trapped, their lives unraveling because of lies. His phone buzzed with notifications, hateful messages piling up, calling his dad a traitor, a thug, slurs cutting deeper than knives. Caleb's eyes burned, but he refused to cry, not now. Not when his mum's laptop sat open, her stolen exposé a ghost in its empty files. He'd overheard her talking about Voss, the Iron Covenant, the photo that could ruin them. If she couldn't publish it, he would. Caleb dug through her cloud backups, his fingers trembling as he recovered fragments of the draft, enough to piece together the truth. Voss's ties to supremacists, his deals with D.A. Carver, his campaign to destroy Marcus. Caleb's heart raced. This was his chance to fight back. He uploaded the exposé to a whistleblower site, anonymizing his IP with a trick he'd learned from gaming forums. The post went live, spreading like wildfire, hashtags trending within. Ours, Justice for Ellison, expose Voss. Caleb exhaled a flicker of triumph, believing he'd turned the tide. But the victory was short-lived. His phone pinged, a text from an unknown number. "You're next, kid." His stomach dropped. Voss's people had traced him. He peeked through the blinds, spotting a familiar black SUV parked across the street, the same one that chased him and Lena from the motel. Jamal's mom was at work, the apartment empty, no one to help. Caleb grabbed his backpack, stuffing in the laptop, and slipped out the back door, his sneakers silent on the fire escape. The Atlanta night was humid, streetlights casting long shadows as he darted through alleys, his breath ragged. He heard tires screech, the SUV rounding the corner, its headlights sweeping like a predator's gaze. Caleb ducked behind a dumpster, his heart hammering, and realized this wasn't just a chase, it was a manhunt. Back in the jail, Marcus leaned on his new ally, Tyson, who'd heard whispers of Caleb's stunt. "Kid's got guts," Tyson said, "but he's poking a bear." Marcus's chest tightened, pride mixing with dread. He needed to reach his FBI team, Sarah, anyone who could protect Caleb. Tyson arranged another phone drop, the device hidden in a laundry cart, but the guards were watching closer now, their eyes sharp with Voss's orders. Marcus waited for lights out, then dialed Sarah's secure line, his voice low, urgent. "Caleb's in danger," he said. "Voss is after him." Sarah's voice crackled. "I'm trying, Marcus, but headquarters is locked down. Someone's blocking me." The call cut off, a guard's boots echoing nearby. Marcus hid the phone, but his hope surged. He'd reached her. Maybe she could act. Unbeknownst to him, Voss had intercepted the call, his tech guy tracing the signal. By morning, the jail buzzed. With new orders, Marcus was blamed for inciting a riot, a fabricated charge to isolate him further. Tyson pulled him aside, his face grim. "They're pinning this on you, man. Voss is playing chess and you're the pawn." Marcus's jaw clenched, but his focus was Caleb, out there, alone. In the city, Caleb sprinted through Atlanta's back streets, the SUV's engine a constant roar behind him. He zigzagged through markets, past neon-lit bodegas, his lungs burning. He remembered his dad's stories, how he'd outrun danger as a kid in these same streets, and channeled that grit. He slipped into a crowded bus terminal, blending with the late-night commuters, but the relief was fleeting. A man in a dark jacket, Hargrove's partner from the traffic stop, scanned the crowd, his hand on a radio. Caleb's pulse spiked. Hargrove himself was hunting him. He ducked into a restroom, splashing water on his face, trying to think. His phone vibrated, a news alert. His expose had sparked protests outside the precinct, people demanding Marcus's release. Caleb's chest swelled. He'd done that. He'd moved the needle. But the moment shattered as Hargrove's voice barked outside, "Check the stalls." Caleb climbed into a ceiling vent, his skinny frame barely fitting, and crawled through dust and darkness, the metal creaking under his weight. He emerged in a storage room, slipping out a side exit, but the streets weren't safe. The protests had drawn a counter-mob, vigilantes fueled by Voss's propaganda, waving signs calling Marcus a terrorist. Caleb's expose had lit a fire, but it had also painted a target on his back. He ran toward a park, hoping to lose Hargrove. In the trees, but the mob spotted him, their shouts chilling. "There's the kid!" Caleb's legs burned, his backpack bouncing, as he dove into an underpass, the mob's footsteps thundering behind. He tripped, scraping his knee, and for a moment thought of giving up. But his dad's voice echoed in his mind. "We don't quit." Caleb scrambled up, spotting a delivery truck idling nearby. He climbed into its open back, hiding among crates as it pulled away, the mob's cries fading. He exhaled, believing he'd escaped, but the truck stopped at a red light and Hargrove's cruiser pulled alongside, his eyes locking onto Caleb through the crates. Caleb froze, trapped, as Hargrove radioed for backup, a smile curling his lips. The truck lurched forward, giving Caleb seconds to act. He jumped out, sprinting into a construction site, but the mob's shouts grew louder, closing in, their hatred a living force. Caleb's rebellion had shaken Voss's empire, but it had unleashed a storm he couldn't outrun. The Fulton County Jail's air was thick with tension as Marcus Ellison sat in his cell, the news of Caleb's desperate flight and Lena's arrest searing his mind like a brand. The smuggled phone's failure haunted him, his call to Sarah intercepted, twisted into a lie that painted him as a riot instigator. His ally Tyson's warning rang true. Voss was playing chess, and Marcus was cornered. But surrender wasn't in his blood. Caleb was out there, hunted, and Lena was caged, their families' survival resting on his next move. Marcus leaned against the cell's grimy wall, his eyes tracing the scratches left by countless others, each mark a story of resistance or defeat. He chose resistance. Tyson slipped into the cell block during rec time, his voice a low rumble. "Kid's expose lit a fire," he said, "but Voss's mob is closing in." Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "We need to move," he said. "Get me out, I'll find Caleb, free Lena." Tyson's eyes narrowed, weighing the risk. "Jailbreak's no joke, man," he said. "Guards are Voss's dogs." But Marcus saw a spark in Tyson's gaze, a man tired of the system's boot. They hatched a plan, exploit a flaw in the jail's routine. Every Tuesday, a delivery truck left the loading dock unguarded for 10 minutes, a gap Marcus could slip through with Tyson's help. They'd stage a distraction, a fight in the yard to draw the guards' eyes. Marcus spent the night mapping the jail in his mind. Every hallway, every camera, his FBI training sharpening his focus. By dawn, he felt a flicker of hope. This could work. Tyson recruited 2 inmates loyal to him to start the brawl, while Marcus prepared to move. The morning sun barely pierced the jail's high windows as the plan unfolded. In the yard, Tyson's men shouted, shoving each other, their staged fight escalating into chaos as inmates joined in, fists flying, voices roaring. Guards rushed to break it up, batons raised, leaving the loading dock clear. Marcus slipped through the cell block, his orange jumpsuit blending with the shadows, Tyson at his side. They reached the dock, the truck idling, its driver distracted by the yard's uproar. Marcus's heart pounded, freedom so close he could taste it. He climbed into the truck's cargo hold, Tyson ready to cover his exit, when a siren blared, sharp and sudden. "Lock down!" A guard's voice boomed over the intercom. "All inmates to cells, now!" Marcus froze, his breath catching. The plan was blown. Voss's men had anticipated this. The dock's gate slammed shut, trapping Marcus inside, and armed guards flooded the area, their boots thundering. Tyson cursed, pulling Marcus back into a storage closet, but the door rattled, a guard's flashlight sweeping through the crack. Marcus's mind raced. They were seconds from discovery. He grabbed a pipe from the closet's corner, ready to fight, but Tyson hissed, "Wait." The guard moved on, distracted by the yard's chaos, and Marcus exhaled, his pulse a drumbeat. They retreated to the cell block, the lockdown sealing their chance, but Marcus's resolve hardened. He'd try again. He had to. That night the guards retaliated, Voss's orders clear. Marcus was dragged to solitary, a windowless box reeking of mildew, where 2 officers, their faces twisted with hate, beat him. Fists slammed into his ribs, boots struck his legs, each blow laced with slurs. "You thought you'd outsmart Voss." Marcus curled, protecting his face, his body screaming, but his mind stayed sharp, memorizing their voices, their badges. The beating stopped, leaving him gasping on the concrete, blood pooling under his cheek. The guards laughed, tossing him. "A rag, clean up, snitch." Marcus wiped his face, his rage a furnace fueling his will to survive. He was alone, the cell's darkness absolute, but Lena's courage, Caleb's defiance, burned brighter than the pain. Outside, Lena, released on a technicality after her trespassing charge, stood in a downtown square, her voice echoing through a megaphone. She'd rallied activists, their signs demanding Marcus's freedom, their chants shaking the precinct's walls. The crowd swelled, hundreds strong, their phones streaming live, amplifying her plea. "Voss is corrupt, free Marcus Ellison." Lena felt a surge of power, believing the tide was turning, that Marcus would walk free. But Voss struck back, his counter-protest crashing into hers like a tidal wave. Men in dark jackets, Iron Covenant thugs, infiltrated the crowd, shouting slurs, throwing bottles, turning the rally into a riot. Lena ducked a flying can, her arm grazed, her megaphone knocked away. Police swarmed, batons swinging, but their eyes were on her people, not Voss's. Lena's hope crumbled as arrests began, her allies dragged away, the live streams cut off. She escaped, hiding in a coffee shop, her hands shaking as she checked her phone. A new headline blared, "Ellison linked to terror plot, FBI investigates." Marcus, they claimed, had orchestrated the jail riot, planned attacks from his cell, a lie so bold it stunned her. Voss had escalated, painting Marcus not just a criminal but a national threat, ensuring a federal trial that could bury him for life. Lena's chest tightened, her fight now a war against an enemy who rewrote truth itself. In solitary, Marcus heard scraps of news through a guard's radio. Lena's protest, the riot, the terrorism charge. Each word was a knife, Voss's machine crushing his family's every move. He scratched a tally on the cell wall, 7 days in this hole, 7 days to plan his next strike. He'd lost the jailbreak, lost contact with Tyson, but he wasn't broken. He whispered to himself, "Lena, Caleb, I'm coming," a vow to keep his spirit alive. But as the cell's silence deepened, a guard's voice cut through, new orders. Ellison's trial's fast-tracked, feds want him in Supermax. Marcus's blood ran cold. the stakes now unimaginable, his fight no longer just for freedom, but for survival against a system rigged to erase him. If you're stunned by Voss's ruthless escalation, comment 1 to demand justice for Marcus, smash that like button, and subscribe to see this battle unfold. Will Lena's defiance crack Voss's empire, or has Marcus's failed gambit sealed their family's doom? The solitary cell's darkness pressed against Marcus Ellison like a living thing, its concrete walls etched with his tally of days, now 8, each mark a defiance against the system crushing him. The guard's words about a fast-tracked trial, and Supermax echoed, a death sentence in all but name. Yet Marcus clung to thoughts of Lena's rally, Caleb's courage, refusing to break. His bruised ribs ached with every breath, the beating in solitary, a brutal reminder of Voss's reach. But his mind stayed sharp, plotting, waiting for a crack in the jail's armor. Across Atlanta, Lena Ellison stood in a crowded civic center, her heart pounding as she gripped a microphone facing a sea of reporters and onlookers. Her release from the trespassing charge had been a fleeting victory, the protests chaos, and the terrorism charge against Marcus overshadowing her efforts. But she'd found a new weapon, a leaked audio clip from a whistleblower, Voss boasting about framing Marcus to Iron Covenant allies. Lena had verified it. Her journalists' instincts razor-sharp, and now at this press conference, she'd expose him live. The room buzzed, cameras rolling as she began, her voice steady but electric. "Captain Leonard Voss is a corrupt racist," she said, holding up her phone. "This audio proves he's tied to the Iron Covenant, a supremacist group, and he's framing my husband, Marcus Ellison, to silence him." She played the clip, Voss's voice clear, smug. "We'll bury that black fed, make him a lesson." Gasps rippled through the crowd, reporters scribbling furiously, phones streaming to thousands online. Lena's eyes blazed. She listed Voss's crimes, the planted drugs, the doctored footage, the attacks on her family. The audience turned, their murmurs shifting from skepticism to outrage, shouts of shame on Voss erupting. Lena felt a surge of triumph. This was it, the moment to topple his empire. She called for federal investigation, her words a rallying cry, and the crowd roared approval, their applause shaking the room. For a moment she believed Marcus would walk free, that justice was within reach. But Voss was never one to yield. As Lena stepped off the stage, her phone buzzed with a breaking news alert, an audio leak of Marcus allegedly confessing to drug trafficking and riot planning. The voice was his, but the words were wrong, spliced, a digital forgery so convincing. It chilled her. The crowd's cheers faltered, reporters pivoting to this new scandal, their questions now accusatory. Lena's stomach dropped. Voss had countered her move with a lie bold enough to rewrite the narrative. She pushed through the chaos, slipping out a side exit, her mind racing to regroup. But the night had more traps. A black van screeched to a halt, and Officer Daniel Hargrove emerged, his grin predatory, his gun drawn. "You're done, Mrs. Ellison," he said, grabbing her arm, twisting it until she gasped. He shoved her into the van, the door slamming as it sped into Atlanta's underbelly. Lena's hands were zip-tied, her phone confiscated as Hargrove drove to a remote warehouse, its rusted walls looming under a moonless sky. Inside, he tied her to a chair, the air thick with oil and decay, his eyes glinting with malice. "Voss sends his regards," he said, pacing like a hunter. "You thought you'd win with that stunt? We own this city." Lena's fear battled her fury. She'd struck a blow, but Voss's retaliation was personal, lethal. She tested the zip ties, her wrists burning, searching for a way to fight. But Hargrove's radio crackled, Voss's voice ordering, "Keep her. Quiet until we finish, Ellison." Lena's heart sank. Marcus was still in their crosshairs, her victory a mirage. Back in solitary, Marcus scratched another tally, unaware of Lena's peril, but sensing the shift. A guard's radio mentioned the press conference, Lena's exposé, and Marcus's chest swelled. His wife was fighting, shaking Voss's throne. He needed to act, to support her from this cage. He'd lost Tyson's phone in the lockdown, but a new guard, younger, seemed less loyal to Voss, his glances nervous, conflicted. Marcus seized the chance, whispering through the cell's slot. "I'm innocent," framed by Voss. "Get a message to Sarah Coleman, FBI. Tell her to check Voss's finances." The guard hesitated, then nodded, slipping away. Marcus exhaled, a spark, of hope, believing he'd reconnected with his team. But Voss's machine was relentless. The guard returned hours later, his face ashen. "Tried," he said. "Your deputy's suspended, accused of aiding you. They're watching everyone." Marcus staggered, Sarah, his lifeline cut off, the betrayal deeper than the jail's walls. He sank to the floor, the tally marks blurring, his family's fight now. A solo war. Lena's press conference had rattled Voss, but Hargrove's ambush had flipped the board. In the warehouse, Lena sat, her wrists raw, Hargrove's taunts a constant drone. She memorized the room, a broken window, a loose pipe. Her mind-plotting escape, but Hargrove's radio buzzed again. A report of FBI agents sniffing around Voss's precinct. Lena's hope flickered. Her exposé had drawn federal eyes, maybe enough to save Marcus. But Hargrove laughed, crushing that spark. "Voss'll handle the feds," he said. "And you? Your leverage." Lena's eyes narrowed. She wasn't done. She'd find a way to turn this trap against them. But as the warehouse's shadows deepened, a new sound echoed, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and Lena braced herself, knowing Voss's next move would be crueler still. The solitary cell's suffocating darkness pressed harder on Marcus Ellison. The 9th tally mark, scratched into the concrete, a faint rebellion against his crumbling world. Lena's kidnapping, whispered through a guard's careless radio chatter, burned in his chest, a pain sharper than the bruises from his beating. Sarah's suspension, Caleb's disappearance, and the federal trial looming like a guillotine left him dangling by a thread. Voss's machine was relentless, but Marcus was done waiting for cracks in the system. He'd make his own. The cell's silence was a challenge, and he answered with a plan. Reckless, desperate, but his only shot to save his family. He'd heard. The jail's rhythm, guards slacking during shift changes, inmates restless after weeks of lockdowns. A riot could be his key, chaos to mask his escape from solitary. Marcus banged on his cell door, shouting for Tyson, knowing the older inmates' influence could spark the fire. A guard snapped, "Quiet down," but Marcus kept yelling, drawing attention, planting the seed. Tyson's voice reached him later through a vent, low and cautious. "You sure, man?" "Riot's a death wish," Marcus whispered back. "It's for my family." "I'm out of moves." Tyson paused, then agreed. "I'll spread the word. Yard tomorrow. Be ready." Marcus lay back, his ribs throbbing, picturing Lena's fierce eyes, Caleb's nervous grin, fueling his resolve. The next morning, the jail's tension was a live wire, inmates muttering, guards on edge. Marcus was pulled from solitary for recce. Time? A rare lapse he knew wasn't chance. Voss wanted him vulnerable. In the yard, Tyson gave a nod and the plan ignited. 2 inmates started shouting, shoving, their staged fight exploding as others joined, fists and insults flying. Marcus slipped to the edge, Tyson at his side as guards rushed in, batons swinging. The chaos was perfect, a storm Marcus could ride. He and Tyson bolted for the cell block, dodging a guard's grab, their orange jumpsuits blending with the mob. They reached a maintenance hall, its door ajar, a mistake Marcus exploited. Inside, they found a vent leading to the admin wing, where phones and keys waited. Marcus crawled through, the metal biting his knees, Tyson behind, their breaths, loud in the tight space. They emerged in an office, a desk phone glinting like salvation. Marcus dialed his FBI loyalist, Agent Torres, his voice urgent. "Lena's been taken, Caleb's missing, Voss is behind it all. Torres promised to act. I've got eyes on the precinct, hang tight." Marcus hung up, hope surging, believing he'd cracked Voss's wall. He and Tyson grabbed a guard's keycard, aiming for the loading dock, their escape route from the failed jailbreak. But the jail's alarms screamed, red lights flashing, riot containment in effect. Marcus's gut twisted. The plan was unraveling. They sprinted toward the dock, but the hall filled with shouts, not guards, but inmates, armed, organized, their eyes locked on Marcus. Tyson cursed. Voss paid them. It's a hit. The riot wasn't just chaos. It was a trap. Marcus's move anticipated. Weaponized. He fought back, his FBI training a blur, disarming one inmate with a wrist twist, slamming another into a wall. Tyson threw punches, clearing a path, But the dock was sealed, steel gates down, no way out. Marcus spotted a guard station, its phone a last chance. He dove for it, dialing Torres again, but the line was dead, static, mocking him. The inmates closed in, shanks glinting, and Marcus braced for the end. But a new sound roared. Boots, not. Inmates, but tactical gear. A SWAT team storming the hall. Marcus raised his hands, shouting, "I'm FBI," but their eyes were cold, their rifles trained. "You're Ellison," their leader said. "Cuff him." Marcus's hope shattered. This wasn't rescue. It was Voss's endgame. The team wasn't SWAT. They were mercenaries, their patches unmarked, their orders clear. Eliminate the target. Tyson tackled one, buying Marcus seconds to run, but a gunshot rang out, pain exploding in Marcus's shoulder, blood soaking a jumpsuit. He stumbled, vision blurring, but kept moving, diving behind a crate as bullets sparked around him. Tyson dragged him to a stairwell, slamming the door, their breaths ragged. "You're hit," Tyson said, but Marcus waved him off. "I'm not done." They hid in a utility room, Marcus's wound burning, his mind racing. The mercenary's betrayal was Voss's cruelest blow, twisting his call to Torres into a death sentence. Marcus tore his sleeve, binding the wound, his teeth gritted. Lena's. "Face his anchor." Tyson scouted the hall, reporting back. "They're sweeping, but feds are coming, real ones. Your call got through." Marcus nodded, clinging to that thread. But the radio crackled, a mercenary's voice. "Kid's gone, Covenant's got him." Caleb missing, now in Voss's hands, the blow worse than the bullet. Marcus's vision swam, blood loss and despair clawing at him, but he forced himself up. "I'm finding them." Tyson blocked the door. "You'll die out there, wait for the feds." But Marcus pushed past, the stairwell's echo swallowing his steps, his family's fate pulling him forward, even as the mercenaries' boots closed in, their hunt relentless, Voss's machine unyielding. If you're raging at the betrayal that turned Marcus's fight into a bloodbath, comment 1 to stand against this injustice, hit that like button, and subscribe for the next chapter of this relentless saga. Can Marcus, wounded and hunted, find allies to save Lena and Caleb before Voss's mercenaries close the trap? The utility room's stale air choked Marcus Ellison as he leaned against a rusted pipe, his shoulder throbbing, blood seeping through the torn sleeve binding his gunshot wound. The echo of mercenary boots faded, but Caleb's capture by the Iron Covenant and Lena's imprisonment in Voss's warehouse burned hotter than the pain. Tyson's plea to wait for real feds rang hollow. Marcus couldn't sit idle while his family suffered. The jail's red alarms pulsed, a reminder of the riot's chaos. His failed escape now a death trap orchestrated by Voss. A faint clatter broke his thoughts. A guard, not a mercenary, slipping through the door, his eyes wide with fear, not malice. "I'm done with Voss," the guard whispered. "Name's Eli. Saw what you did fighting back. You don't deserve this." Marcus tensed, wary of betrayal, but Eli's hands were empty, his badge glinting with nervous sweat. "Get me out," Marcus said, his voice hoarse but firm. "My family's in danger." Eli nodded, tossing him a stolen keycard. "There's a service tunnel, leads to the street," he said. "Move fast." Marcus gripped Tyson's arm. "You with me?" Tyson's nod was grim. "Let's roll." They followed Eli through a maze of pipes and flickering lights, the tunnel's damp walls closing in, each step a gamble. Gunfire echoed behind, mercenaries sweeping the jail, but Eli's route was clear. A back door Voss hadn't sealed. They emerged in an alley, Atlanta's humid night wrapping around them, the jail's sirens a distant wail. Eli pointed to a beat-up. "Set and keys inside, I'm out," he said, vanishing into the shadows. Marcus slid behind the wheel, pain shooting through his shoulder, Tyson's shotgun, scanning for threats. They drove, weaving through back streets, the city's neon blur a stark contrast to the jail's grey hell. Marcus's mind raced. He needed a safe haven, a way to find Lena and Caleb. Tyson suggested a community center in West End, run by activists who'd rallied for Marcus after Lena's exposé. "They hate Voss," Tyson said. "They'll hide you." Marcus nodded, hope flickering. A community rising where the system failed. The center was a low brick building, its windows taped, lights dim to avoid attention. Inside, a dozen faces turned, wary, but warm, led by Aisha, a wiry woman with a scar across her cheek. "We saw your wife's press conference," she said, voice steady. You're one of us now." Marcus exhaled, the words a lifeline, his wound cleaned by a nurse among them, his story heard without judgment. Aisha's team had tracked Voss's moves, whispers of a warehouse where Lena was held, a Covenant base where Caleb might be. Marcus shared his plan. Infiltrate the base, free his family, expose Voss to the feds. The activists armed him with burner phones, maps, even a handgun, their trust a balm to his battered spirit. Tyson, now free after the riot's chaos, scouted the room, nodding. These folks are real, man. Marcus felt a surge of strength. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It was theirs. They strategized, Aisha's hackers pulling satellite images of the warehouse, her runners confirming Lena's presence. Marcus prepared to move, his shoulder bandaged, his resolve iron, believing he'd turned the tide. But Voss's shadow loomed. As the group finalized plans, a low rumble shook the center, followed by a deafening blast. Flames erupted, the front, wall collapsing as firebombs tore through, Voss's retaliation swift and savage. Screams filled the air, activists scrambling, some trapped under debris. Marcus dove for Aisha, pulling her from a falling beam, his wound screaming as he carried her to safety. Tyson hauled out the nurse, coughing through smoke, but the center was a pyre, years of community work reduced to ash. Marcus rallied the survivors, leading them to a nearby church, their faces etched with shock and rage. Aisha, singed but unbroken, checked her phone, a message from a mole. "Voss bribed feds, your rescue's an ambush." Marcus's heart sank. The community's stand, his newfound allies, all targeted. The betrayal deeper than the jail's walls. He'd thought the center was his salvation, a base to strike back. But Voss had turned it to rubble, his reach strangling. Even this refuge. The survivors regrouped, their eyes on Marcus, not with blame but with fire, ready to fight. He clutched the burner phone, its screen cracked but alive, and dialed Torres again, whispering, "Warehouse Covenant, they've got my family." Torres's voice was tense. "I'm moving," but Voss's got eyes everywhere. Marcus hung up, his wound bleeding anew, the church's stained glass casting red shadows on his face. Aisha handed him a fresh map, her voice low. "Go get 'em. We'll hold here." Marcus nodded, Tyson at his side. The community's strength, his new armor. But the ambush warning echoed, Voss's trap waiting, his family's lives hanging by a thread. The fight now a race against a machine that burned everything it touched. The church's dim light cast jagged shadows over Marcus Ellison as he stood among the West End activists, their faces hardened by the firebombing that reduced their community center to ash. His shoulder wound pulsed, blood seeping through fresh bandages. But the pain was drowned by the fire in his chest. Lena and Caleb were in Voss's hands, and the warning of a federal ambush loomed like a noose. Aisha's map, creased and singed, lay open on a pew, pinpointing the Iron Covenant's warehouse, a fortress where his family was held. Marcus gripped the burner phone, Torres's tense promise of federal action a thin thread, but he couldn't. Wait, not with Voss's mercenaries circling. Tyson, his jaw set, checked the handgun Aisha's team had given them. "We hit hard. We hit fast," he said. Marcus nodded, his FBI training sharpening his focus. Every mission he'd run now distilled into this, save his family, end Voss's reign. They slipped out under Atlanta's moonless sky, the city's hum a distant pulse as they drove a borrowed van to the warehouse's edge, a sprawling complex ringed by razor wire and floodlights. Marcus's heart pounded, each beat a vow to Lena. "To Caleb, I'm coming." He and Tyson crouched in the shadows, studying the guards, Covenant thugs in tactical gear, their radios crackling with orders. Aisha's hackers had cut the perimeter cameras, giving them a window, but the ambush warning gnawed at Marcus. Voss knew he was coming. They scaled a back fence, Marcus's wound screaming as he dropped to the other side, his breath shallow but steady. The warehouse loomed, its rusted walls hiding horrors, and Marcus pictured Lena's defiance, Caleb's courage fueling his steps. They slipped through a loading bay, the air thick with oil and fear, and Marcus's training took over, silent, precise, disarming a lone guard with a chokehold, his body slumping without a sound. Tyson grabbed the guard's radio, its chatter confirming Lena's location, East Wing, heavily guarded. Marcus's hope flared. She was alive, but Caleb's Whereabouts were avoided. The Covenant's base a maze of threats. They moved deeper, dodging patrols, their footsteps muffled on concrete. Marcus found a control room, its monitors showing Lena tied to a chair, Hargrove pacing, his gun gleaming. Marcus's blood boiled, but he stayed cold, methodical, hacking the system to loop the footage, buying time. They reached the east wing, a steel door guarded by 2 Covenant enforcers, their rifles ready. Marcus signaled Tyson and they struck, Marcus's fist cracking one's jaw, Tyson's tackle dropping the other. Their moves a synchronized dance of desperation. Inside, Lena's eyes widened, relief and fear colliding as Marcus cut her zip ties, her wrists raw but her spirit unbroken. "You're here," she whispered, gripping his hand. But Caleb's not. They moved him. Marcus's heart lurched, his son still lost, but Lena's strength anchored him. They armed her with a guard's pistol, her journalist's fire, now a warrior's resolve. Aisha's runners had live-streamed their infiltration, broadcasting to activists who rallied outside, their phones lighting up social media with justice for Ellison. Marcus felt a surge of victory. The world was watching, Voss's lies cracking. They moved to exfiltrate, Marcus leading, Lena and Tyson covering, but the warehouse shook, a low hum rising to a roar. Alarms screamed, red lights flashing, and Marcus's gut twisted, self-destruct sequence initiated, a robotic voice blared. Voss had rigged the base to bury them, his cruelty boundless. The walls groaned, pipes bursting, flames licking the corridors as the building began to collapse. Marcus grabbed Lena, pulling her through a collapsing hallway, Tyson clearing debris. With brute force, they dodged falling beams, the heat searing, their lungs burning with smoke. Marcus spotted a broken window, their only exit, and boosted Lena through, her hands scraping glass. Tyson followed, but a steel girder crashed, pinning his leg. "Go," he shouted, "I'll hold them." Marcus hesitated, but Tyson's eyes were fierce. "Save your kid." Marcus nodded, pain tearing at him, and pulled Lena into the night, the warehouse. Imploding behind them, a fiery tomb for their ally. They ran, the livestream capturing their escape, but freedom was a lie. A news alert flashed on Lena's stolen phone. Marcus Ellison, mastermind of Covenant attack, wanted for terrorism. Voss had flipped the script, the livestream twisted to paint Marcus as the villain. His family's rescue now a global manhunt. Marcus staggered, the betrayal worse than the flames, his wound bleeding anew as sirens wailed, closing in. Lena gripped. "His arm, we're not done," she said, her voice a lifeline. They vanished into the woods, the world against them, Caleb still out there, Voss's machine rewriting truth with every step. Marcus's victory, freeing Lena, was ashes, the terrorism. Label a chain heavier than any cell. His fight now a war against a lie that branded him a monster. The woods outside Atlanta's collapsing warehouse swallowed Marcus and Lena Ellison, their breaths ragged as they stumbled through tangled underbrush, the distant wail of sirens a relentless hunter. Marcus's shoulder wound burned, blood soaking, his stolen jacket, but the pain was nothing compared to the void of Caleb's absence and the crushing weight of the terrorism label Voss had pinned on him. The livestream that captured their escape, meant to expose the Iron Covenant, had been twisted into a lie. Marcus now branded a mastermind of destruction, hunted by feds, police, and vigilantes. Lena clutched his hand, her eyes fierce despite the cuts on her arms from the warehouse's glass. "We'll find Caleb," she whispered, her voice a tether to hope. They moved deeper into the night, the city's glow fading, each step a gamble against Voss's machine. Marcus's mind raced, replaying the warehouse's implosion, Tyson's sacrifice, the betrayal that turned their victory to ash. They needed shelter, allies, a way to clear his name, but the world saw him as a monster. Lena's burner phone, barely functional, showed news alerts piling up. FBI manhunt intensifies. Ellison armed and dangerous. Marcus's chest tightened, his 20-year career, his life, erased by Voss's lies. They trekked miles, avoiding roads until dawn broke, revealing a rural black community nestled in Georgia's hills, its clapboard houses and small church a faint promise of refuge. Lena recognized it. "I wrote about this place," she said. "They've fought racists for generations. Marcus nodded, hope flickering. Maybe here they'd find safety. They approached cautiously, knocking on a weathered door. An elder, Miss Clara, answered, her eyes sharp but kind, taking in their battered state. "You're the Ellisons," she said, voice low. "Seen the news? Don't believe it. Come in." Inside, the community gathered, their faces etched with defiance, offering food, clothes, a moment to breathe. Marcus's wound was redressed by a retired medic. Lena's cuts cleaned, their gratitude unspoken but deep. Clara's son Darius, a tech-savvy 20-something, showed them a hidden basement equipped with old radios and a laptop. "We've been tracking Voss," he said. "He's got the Covenant stirred up, hunting you." Marcus shared their story, the traffic, stopped the planted drugs, Caleb's capture, and the group listened, their anger mirroring his. "We'll hide you," Clara said, "but you gotta move fast, Covenant's close." Marcus and Lena strategized, using Darius's laptop to hack into Voss's leaked comms, pinpointing Caleb's likely location, a Covenant safe house 50 miles north. Marcus felt a surge of purpose. He'd save his son, expose Voss, end this. They prepared to move, armed with Clara's old shotgun and Darius's burner phones, believing this community was their turning point. But Voss's reach was a hydra. As they planned, a low rumble shook the ground, headlights piercing the dawn. Covenant mercenaries, tipped by a bribed Fed, stormed the community, their trucks tearing through the dirt roads, guns blazing. Marcus grabbed Lena, diving into the basement as bullets shattered windows. Clara's people returning fire with hunting rifles. Screams filled the air, the community's defiance met with ruthless force. Marcus and Lena slipped out a storm hatch. Clara, urging, "Go, save your boy, we'll hold them." They ran, the shotgun heavy in Marcus's hands, his wound screaming, but the raid's chaos gave them cover. They stole a mercenary's jeep, speeding north, the community's gunfire fading behind. Marcus's heart tore, another refuge burned. For helping him, but Lena's grip on his arm kept him focused, Caleb's waiting. They drove through back roads, avoiding checkpoints, the radio blaring updates. Ellison spotted in rural Georgia, public urged to report sightings. Vigilantes were mobilizing, spurred by Voss's propaganda, their trucks patrolling highways. Marcus's hope clung to Darius's intel. The safe house was real, Caleb was there. They reached it by dusk, a fortified cabin in dense woods, guarded by Covenant thugs. Marcus scouted, his FBI skills sharp, spotting weak points, a side window, a distracted sentry. He and Lena crept closer, ready to strike when Darius's burner buzzed. A video file, Voss's confession from the warehouse, recorded by Aisha's livestream before it twisted. Marcus's pulse raced. This was it, proof to clear his name. He uploaded it to every platform, the confession going viral, Voss exposed as a racist orchestrator, public outrage swelling. Marcus believed he'd won. The truth would free Caleb, end the hunt. He and Lena breached the cabin, taking down guards with silent precision, finding Caleb bound but alive, his eyes wide with relief. They hugged, a fleeting moment of victory. But the radio crackled, bomb planted in Clara's church, time to wipe out your allies. Marcus's blood froze, Voss's final trap, punishing the community that dared help him. They raced back, Caleb in tow, reaching the church as the timer ticked 10 seconds. Marcus dove inside, his wound tearing open, and found the device, wires tangled, his hands shaking. He cut the red wire, a guess, and the timer stopped, the church silent, saved. But as he staggered out, a lone mercenary, Voss's last loyalist, emerged, rifle raised. "You're done, Ellison," he said, cuffing Marcus before Lena could react, his victory snatched, the confession's truth not enough to stop Voss's final blow. Caleb's cry echoed as Marcus was dragged away. The manhunts, jaws closing, his family's fight hanging by a thread. The woods outside Atlanta's collapsing warehouse swallowed Marcus and Lena Ellison, their breaths ragged as they stumbled through tangled underbrush, the distant wail of sirens a relentless hunter. Marcus's shoulder wound burned, blood soaking, his stolen jacket, but the pain was nothing compared to the void of Caleb's absence and the crushing weight of the terrorism label Voss had pinned on him. The livestream that captured their escape, meant to expose the Iron Covenant, had been twisted into a lie. Marcus now branded a mastermind of destruction, hunted by feds, police, and vigilantes. Lena clutched his hand, her eyes fierce despite the cuts on her arms from the warehouse's glass. "We'll find Caleb," she whispered, her voice a tether to hope. They moved deeper into the night, the city's glow fading, each step a gamble against Voss's machine. Marcus's mind raced, replaying the warehouse's implosion, Tyson's sacrifice, the betrayal that turned their victory to ash. They needed shelter, allies, a way to clear his name, but the world saw him as a monster. Lena's burner phone, barely functional, showed news alerts piling up. FBI manhunt intensifies. Ellison armed and dangerous. Marcus's chest tightened. His 20-year career, his life, erased by Voss's lies. They trekked miles, avoiding roads until dawn broke, revealing a rural black community nestled in Georgia's hills, its clapboard houses and small church a faint promise of refuge. Lena recognized it. "I wrote about this place," she said. "They've fought racists for generations." Marcus nodded, hope flickering. Maybe here they'd find safety. They approached cautiously, knocking on a weathered door. An elder, Miss Clara, answered, her eyes sharp but kind, taking in their battered state. "You're the Ellisons," she said, voice low. "Seen the news? Don't believe it. Come in." Inside, the community gathered, their faces etched with defiance, offering food, clothes, a moment to breathe. Marcus's wound was redressed by a retired medic. Lena's cuts cleaned, their gratitude unspoken but deep. Clara's son Darius, a tech-savvy 20-something, showed them a hidden basement equipped with old radios and a laptop. "We've been tracking Voss," he said. "He's got the Covenant stirred up, hunting you." Marcus shared their story, the traffic, stopped the planted drugs, Caleb's capture, and the group listened, their anger mirroring his. "We'll hide you," Clara said, "but you gotta move fast, Covenant's close." Marcus and Lena strategized, using Darius's laptop to hack into Voss's leaked comms, pinpointing Caleb's likely location, a Covenant safe house 50 miles north. Marcus felt a surge of purpose. He'd save his son, expose Voss, end this. They prepared to move, armed with Clara's old shotgun and Darius's burner phones, believing this community was their turning point. But Voss's reach was a hydra. As they planned, a low rumble shook the ground, headlights piercing the dawn. Covenant mercenaries, tipped by a bribed Fed, stormed the community, their trucks tearing through the dirt roads, guns blazing. Marcus grabbed Lena, diving into the basement as bullets shattered windows. Clara's people returning fire with hunting rifles. Screams filled the air, the community's defiance met with ruthless force. Marcus and Lena slipped out a storm hatch, Clara urging, "Go, save your boy, we'll hold them." They ran, the shotgun heavy in Marcus's hands, his wound screaming, but the raid's chaos gave them cover. They stole a mercenary's jeep, speeding north, the community's gunfire fading behind. Marcus's heart tore, another refuge burned. For helping him, but Lena's grip on his arm kept him focused, Caleb's waiting. They drove through back roads, avoiding checkpoints, the radio blaring updates. Ellison spotted in rural Georgia, public urged to report sightings. Vigilantes were mobilizing, spurred by Voss's propaganda, their trucks patrolling highways. Marcus's hope clung to Darius's intel. The safe house was real, Caleb was there. They reached it by dusk, a fortified cabin in dense woods, guarded by Covenant thugs. Marcus scouted, his FBI skills sharp, spotting weak points, a side window, a distracted sentry. He and Lena crept closer, ready to strike when Darius's burner buzzed. A video file, Voss's confession from the warehouse, recorded by Aisha's livestream before it twisted. Marcus's pulse raced. This was it, proof to clear his name. He uploaded it to every platform, the confession going viral, Voss exposed as a racist orchestrator. Public outrage swelling. Marcus believed he'd won. The truth would free Caleb, end the hunt. He and Lena breached the cabin, taking down guards with silent precision, finding Caleb bound but alive, his eyes wide with relief. They hugged, a fleeting moment of victory. But the radio crackled, bomb planted in Clara's church. Time to wipe out your allies. Marcus's blood froze. Voss's final trap, punishing the community that dared help him. They raced back, Caleb in tow, reaching the church as the timer ticked 10 seconds. Marcus dove inside, his wound tearing open, and found the device, wires tangled, his hands shaking. He cut the red wire, a guess, and the timer stopped, the church silent, saved. But as he staggered out, a lone mercenary, Voss's last loyalist, emerged, rifle raised. "You're done, Ellison," he said, cuffing Marcus before Lena could react, his victory snatched, the confession's truth not enough to stop Voss's final blow. Caleb's cry echoed as Marcus was dragged away. The manhunts, jaws closing, his family's fight hanging by a thread. The story of Marcus Ellison, a black FBI deputy director targeted by a racist conspiracy, reveals the brutal reality of systemic racism and the resilience required to combat it. The primary lesson is the pervasive power of institutionalized prejudice, as seen in Captain Voss's ability to manipulate law enforcement, media, and even federal systems to frame Marcus. This underscores that racism isn't just personal bias, but a machine that distorts justice, demanding constant vigilance to dismantle. Marcus's journey teaches that resilience and community are vital weapons against such oppression. Despite relentless attacks, false arrests, family threats, and career destruction, Marcus's refusal to surrender, bolstered by Lena's courage, Caleb's defiance, and the West End activists' solidarity, shows that collective action can challenge even the most entrenched powers. Another lesson is the cost of truth. Marcus clears his name but loses his career, highlighting the personal sacrifices often required to expose injustice. The story also emphasizes the role of technology and media. Caleb's expose and the activists' livestream turned the tide, proving that truth, when amplified, can shift narratives. Finally, it warns against complacency. Voss's downfall doesn't erase the system's flaws, urging ongoing resistance. This tale inspires us to stand against racist systems, support marginalized voices, and fight for justice, no matter the odds. Comment 1 if you've faced or witnessed systemic racism and believe in fighting back. Hit like, subscribe, and share to amplify this message. Thank you for joining this journey. May you find strength to challenge injustice in your world.